A few housekeeping bits. First of all, the session will last for about 30 minutes and there will be 15 minutes for a Q&A at the end. So do use the chat function throughout if you have any questions or queries, and our speakers will answer them. We're also live tweeting the session and we are fully encouraging engagement on social media this morning. So if you want to take part in the conversation, just use the hashtag #clearingcookies. Awesome. So let's start with a little bit about Arke. We are a digital marketing agency who unravel your data to paint a picture and tell stories to people who will love your brand. We are intelligent digital marketing. So how do we do it? Put simply, our core services are all about stories. So we've got content and creative, intelligence, analytics and data science, and audiences, which is our advertising services. So our USPs all revolve around this. So we are the people first, tech immersed curiosity igniters. We people first in everything that we do, whether that's internally in our culture, building ad campaigns, reporting on campaigns, and absolutely everything that we do is immersed in technology, which we'll show you this morning. One of the things that we're really proud of is the element of knowledge, and it really is what today is all about, which leads us nicely onto your speakers for this morning's masterclass. So my name's Mike, and I'm the marketing manager here at Arke. And I'm joined by two of our digital experts. So we've got Joe Shrimpton, who's Arke's digital manager and analytics guru, and Ben Halliday, who is our paid media manager. So in terms of what we will cover in this session, we'll begin by looking at the state of play today, exploring what the cookieless world looks like, before moving on to what this means for you and your fellow marketers and advertisers. We'll then explore how you can track in a cookieless world, showcasing some of our tips and tricks and best practices, before finishing with how you can win in this all-important clearing period, which we find ourselves in at the moment. So, key takeaways from this masterclass that we hope you'll be leaving with. First of all, the crumble of third-party cookies, and there's going to be a lot of cookie puns in this, I do apologise, and the arrival of iOS 14.5 heralds a new privacy-centric world that really does shake digital advertising to its core. You'll need to get creative with the way you gather data, and we'll show you some tips to do this. First-party data will thrive in the post-third-party cookie world. It has unrivaled value and relevance and offers deep insight and differentiation opportunities for your clearing campaigns. Think about your My Account or My Application portals and how you can authenticate and re-authenticate your users within those. And finally, engage your audiences in the platform. Think video, instant experiences, and really make the most of the retargeting capabilities that exist within the app. Now it's time to get stuck into the content. So first of all, the current state of play, and I promise, there were plenty of cookie puns, and this is absolutely the worst. So what do marketers and Sesame Street monsters have in common? They love cookies, right? It doesn't get any better than that. As I'm sure you're aware, third-party cookies are cookies that are stored under a different domain than you are currently visiting. So they're mostly used to track users between websites and display more relevant ads. Now, again, as I'm sure you're aware, Google has relatively recently announced plans to stop tracking cookies on its Chrome browser by 2023, replacing them with a group profiling system in a move the company says will plot a course towards a more privacy-friendly web. Now, there's no doubt about it, this change is significant. So Chrome commands around 2/3 of the web browser market, and third-party tracking cookies, meanwhile, underpin much of the targeted advertising industry. And while Firefox and Safari have already stopped supporting third-party cookies, Google is the first to produce replacement advertising support, which we'll come on to shortly. Now, iOS 14.5. This was released on the 26th of April, and it is the latest version of Apple's mobile operating system. And it prompts iPhone and iPad users to opt out of tracking in apps that monitor their behavior and share data with third parties. Now, again, there's no doubt about it. This new feature is a significant step for user privacy as it gives more people more control over their data and how it's used by companies such as Facebook and Google. Now, on the other hand, the development has really frustrated app developers, tech companies, and marketers and advertisers who have relied on that data for years. Now, the biggest difference that I'm sure most of you will have seen, as you can see on the left, is the introduction of Apple's new privacy tool called App Tracking Transparency, which pops up when you first open an app. But why all of these changes? So they come about because of people's desire to be more in control of their data, plotting a move, as we said, to a much more privacy-centric world. Now, according to Google, this quote is from them themselves, Users are demanding greater privacy, including transparency, choice, and control over how their data is used, and it's clear the web ecosystem needs to evolve to meet these increasing demands. So, Ben, over to you to explain what this means to marketers and advertisers.
Thanks, Mike. So there's no doubt about it. These changes do have the potential to really rock the advertising and attribution landscape. So naturally, you'll find it difficult to build audience lists and measure ROI if you stick to what you were doing before. In terms of the impact of the third-party cookie crumbling, so first of all, reach. Approximately 80% of advertisers depend on third-party cookies. Without them, those advertisers will need to find a new way to reach their customers and prospects online. Secondly, personalization. So behavioral and browsing data will be limited, making it hard for advertisers who depend on third-party cookies to personalize ads to the user, and this will naturally lead to a bit of a drop in engagement. Third, campaign management. So basic capabilities like A/B testing and frequency capping will be more challenging for advertisers who depend on third-party cookies, purely because you'll have less reach and less visibility on who's clicking and who's engaging. And finally, performance management. So one of the biggest impacts that will come in the form of analytics and attribution. It will undoubtedly become more and more difficult to measure an attribute using platform pixels, which of course rely on third-party cookies. So research by Epsilon shows that 69% of advertisers think that the crumble of the third-party cookie will have a bigger impact than GDPR. And 70% feel that the digital advertising overall will take a step backwards. But from an iOS 14 perspective, understandably, Apple's new privacy features have caused a bit of panic among marketers and advertisers alike, primarily due to how it limits the amount that we can track from users in apps. So advertisers around the world rely heavily on this data, especially on platforms like Facebook and Instagram, to build audiences, measure conversion outcomes, and track analytics. And it's difficult to assess the full impact of the change now, but before the update was released, it was estimated that the percentage of iPhone users sharing their unique IDFAs with apps would drop from 70% to as low as 10%. But perhaps the most alarming stat of all is that 96% of users actually access Facebook through the mobile app. So this change is going to have a big impact, leading to those previously mentioned reduced tracking capabilities for advertisers, and also less personalization and relevant ads for users. So to summarize the overall impact of these changes, there will likely be difficulty in building custom audiences, difficulty in accurately measuring conversion outcomes, difficulty in tracking analytics, but most importantly, difficulty in proving ROI from ad campaigns. Now, Joe, over to you to cover some neat ways that we can track in a cookieless world.
Cool, so starting off with tracking. So first and foremost, Google Analytics 4. Universal Analytics is being phased out next year, so it's really, really important that you get it at least installed and collecting data. Some of the advantages, which we covered actually in the GA4 Masterclass a few months back, and we can send that around after this if that's useful as well. But essentially, the benefit of GA4 is that it's like super customizable in terms of the data structure around events and the users. You can send much more information about both of them, which is really important for leveraging that first-party data. There's also Google Signals as well, which was actually first released in 2019, but it's coming kind of more and more prevalent now. And it's basically uses machine learning to recognize different devices across sessions without the need for those implicit tracking cookies. And there's also a native BigQuery integration as well, which we super recommend doing it. It's completely free, and it helps liberate the Google Analytics data around events and around the users, and makes it more kind of mergeable with your advertising data as well. But definitely look into that as well. As an extension of GA4, you now have FLOC, which is Google's kind of new answer to tracking, like in a cookieless world. It stands for Federated Learning of Cohorts, and essentially it leverages the intelligence from your Google Analytics alongside centralized machine learning with wider web activity to recognize user devices and behavior from across the web and Google Ad products as well for remarketing and targeting purposes, again, without the use for the implicit cookie identifiers. Google has stated that advertisers should still receive about 95% of the conversions per pound spent on site, and actually so far we haven't seen any difference at all, so that's real positive. And as well, you can rest assured that it's done kind of ethically in the sense that you're assuring that your users' anonymity despite being able to retarget. Next, we have the Facebook conversion API. Now, this is something that Facebook is doing. I wouldn't say it's quite advanced as FLOC, but it certainly seems to be robust so far. So Facebook, it's no secret that they were a particular victim of the iOS 14 update. Dare I say they're actually the target of it. And essentially, there's two types of web and analytics tracking. There's client-side and server-side. Client-side happens in the front end and goes across the browser. It's what we see with Pixels, Google Analytics, that sort of thing. And then there's server-side, which is generally regarded as more robust, and it's where servers speak to each other. So it's nothing to do with the browser. In this instance, Facebook has basically built a system that allows the university web server to connect directly to the Facebook server and pass on information about the user and about the interactions they're doing, but again, away from the browser, not reliant on cookies. In terms of the intelligence that we're seeing come through from that and the remarketing granularity, it's actually very good so far. So we're confident that will just get better and better. And as I say, help you guys track in a cookieless world, Facebook. All of that said, first-party cookies are still awesome and well worth pursuing. So most browsers yet are not dropping support for first-party cookies. Third-party, yes, but first-party, no. First-party cookies are still crucial for keeping you logged into systems and things like that. So we can still leverage them in browser to get individuals. But it's also important that we kind of get ahead of the practices that will be really important when they do eventually get phased out. So it's about leveraging values from your different systems, assigning them as first-party cookies, and then being able to pass those back into GA4 on those subsequent sessions. Again, it's about authenticating and re-authenticating users over time using your logged in systems, your forms, your emails. Again, yeah, really important stuff, and we'll get onto a bit more of the advanced stuff in a second. Next point is really, how do we tie this all into clearing? Essentially, it's got to be a first-party data approach, and you've got to think about what can we collect and what do we already have that we can leverage. One question that you should definitely be asking yourself: does your clearing page or clearing pages have an easy, lightweight inquiry form where you're collecting maybe just an email, name, and perhaps like an intended course or subject? Something like that, it's easy to fill in. Remember, in terms of collecting emails, it's really key. Email list targeting is completely unaffected by cookies, and it works across, obviously, Google Ads, Facebook Ads, and a bunch of others as well. So we'll go a little bit, into kind of like leveraging some of this first-party data. We'll start really with unique identifiers, something that can still be used in conjunction with first-party cookies. Your CRM, your email marketing systems, like your application, they all have unique IDs that you can pass through your traffic across your website and then pick back up in Google Analytics. We have an example here on the slide of how we would pass a prospect or like a lead identifier through a UTM from perhaps an email. That UTM parameter can then be picked up in Google Analytics, in Google Tag Manager, passed into Google Analytics, but then also assigned to a first-party cookie to identify that prospect on those subsequent sessions as well. This is actually fairly easy to do, just like in emails, the way you can dynamically insert names and course information, you can do the same on the links, like with that ID as well. As long as it's a field in the data within your email marketing platform, you should better pass it into the email very, very easily. On top of this, we then have kind of passing data from your CRM passing data into your CRM from your website and from Google Analytics to kind of enrich your understanding of those leads and those prospects. So inquiry forms, as you say, in terms of the ones you recommend for the clearing pages, keep them light, but have a load of hidden fields as well, so you can collect data without explicitly asking for it. And that's absolutely fine. It's data that's available like to the browser. It's available to Google Analytics anyway, and you can see it in Google Analytics, but it's great to have it aligned to your lead in that sense. So essentially, in these hidden fields, you can use Google Tag Manager to pass Google Analytics like session IDs, geographic data, device type, all that kind of stuff alongside those leads within your CRM. Again, it's about authenticating and re-authenticating individuals. And then finally, we have live chat. Live chat is a really, really great kind of customer service tool. It's used in every single industry, but it also offers a lot of opportunities as well. So first and foremost, you can understand which clearing content generates those chats. You can get kind of clear understanding of how users interact on different devices from different marketing channels. And we recommend highly triggering chats that kind of start with like a little prompt. Can we help? We've seen that you're looking at this course a lot, for example, just to try and get that going. And it is really a great, more kind of casual, natural way of collecting data from prospects, which you can obviously integrate into your CRM and then target accordingly based on that email data. So from those points compiled earlier and in the clearing section anyway, it really is like first party data is king. You've got to get creative with the way you pass it across your systems and across your website. And you want to be making kind of as many advanced associations as possible. Make sure that you are collecting email data alongside it, because really all you want to be doing is maintaining that strong targeting of the email and retargeting throughout the clearing period. Which brings us to Ben's next section. We'll go into more depth on that.
Lovely, thanks, Joe. So first of all, Facebook Instant Experiences. They're a brilliant way to engage your audience and build custom audiences without cookies. They load instantly and they're mobile optimized and designed to capture the complete attention of the user. So with Instant Experiences, people can watch engaging videos, view photos, swipe through carousels, tilt to pan and explore tagged products, all within a single ad environment. So with Facebook Instant Experience ads, you get a number of design options as standard. Facebook previously rolled out several immersive and dynamic templates that clients could build their ads with, including things like instant lookbooks, storytelling templates, instant storefronts, and customer acquisition templates. However, these templates still do lack the ability to immediately convert users without funneling them back to your mobile site. And of course, mobile sites usually carry longer load times, so things like bounce rate could increase. But instant forms fill that gap really nicely. So with instant forms and lead gen, you can gather contact information and capture leads without having to navigate users away from the app. So importantly, you can use those lead capture forms and utilize them to inject device and session IDs. You can include tracking parameters in your instant forms on Facebook to pass additional information within the form submission for tracking and measurement. If you collect leads from multiple sources, this can really help you identify which marketing channels are most useful to your university. You'll then be able to see the tracking parameters when you access your leads, but of course they won't be visible to people when they submit the form. Another tactic is to retarget users who've recently engaged with your Facebook or Instagram pages so that you're not relying on pixel-based retargeting alone. And this involves creating page and profile custom audiences within the platform. But by retargeting those warm engagement audiences, you'll likely see higher click-through rates, conversion rates, because here you're really capitalizing on the fact that your audience already knows your university because they've interacted with you before. So you can retarget based on things like everyone who's engaged with your page, people who have visited your page, engaged with any post or ad, clicked on any call to action button, sent a message to your page, or people who have saved your page or any post on it. You can also then set a look back window based on time for these audiences. So for example, you can keep people in your audience who've only engaged in the last X number of days. And for something like clearing, we'd recommend 28 days. And then we've got video advertising. So we really do recommend utilizing a video campaign approach, but why? It allows you to engage with users in platform and build audiences of video viewers who you can then retarget with heavier CTAs if they exceed average video view durations of over 50%, 75%, 90%, etc. Identifying these as highly engaged users. And of course, the big bonus, you don't need cookies whatsoever to achieve this. But Mike, back to you now to round off some of these best practices.
Awesome, thank you very much, Ben. So just to really emphasize the opportunity with first party data really, and I know we've been harping on about it for the last 25 minutes or so, but it really is a huge opportunity to use that first party data, as you said, to build customer lists and use them to retarget in Facebook and Instagram. So the benefits of first party data, as you can see on the slide, are pretty profound. So firstly, your first party data can be a really valuable asset. It's about your actual students and prospective students, and it's therefore a unique resource for you and your university. Secondly, again, because it's about the first party data is about your audience and your university, it's relevant to your purpose. So you know where you collected that data, how you got it, and I guess most importantly, why you got it and why you targeted those students. Now, when you come to utilize that data, it's obviously relevant for your purpose, and the audience should hopefully be expecting it, and as a result, should lead to some pretty good engagement rates. Next, we've got how it can help differentiate you. So it really offers a huge competitive advantage because it's specifically, again, relevant to your university. It can really deliver insights to help you differentiate yourself from your competitors, which, as I'm sure you're all aware, is more critical than ever in this hyper-competitive world of student recruitment that we're in. And last but not least, the results are often dramatic and worth the time and money when you come to invest in it. So again, they deliver the insights and give you the ability to better engage your target audiences, often through personalization, at the right points in the customer journey. So many students have kind of come to expect personalized and targeted ad engagements, which does require first party data. So it really is vitally important. Next, we've got diversifying your investments. So this year, it really will be key to diversify investments over different online channels. So whether it's your organic SEO efforts, whether it's advertising on TikTok, as Ben mentioned, whether it's Twitter, or whether it's the student room, it really is key this year to gather as much data and hit as many touch points as possible. Don't just rely on Google, Facebook, and Instagram. And then last but not least, start now. So one key aspect of clearing is obviously audience building, and it really is imperative to start as early as possible, which is obviously too late for 2021 as we're only just under 4 weeks away, but start tracking and begin building your audiences for 2022 now. By the very nature of these changes, so iOS 14.5 and third-party cookies, audience sizes will reduce, which is why it's imperative that you start doing this now for 2022. You'll be able to really refine and make sure that your campaigns and audiences are as large as possible. So to wrap everything up, we just got a couple more slides before we jump into Q&A because we've got some questions coming in, which is awesome. Really just to reiterate those key takeaways that we've been going through. So the crumble, there you go, one last cookie pun, the crumble of third-party cookies and the arrival of iOS 14.5 really does herald a new privacy-centric world, and it does shape digital advertising to its core. Pretty terrifying if you don't know what you're going to do in the future. So you will need to get creative with the way you gather data. And first-party data is definitely a solution, and it will thrive in the post-third-party cookie world. It's got unrivaled value and relevance, as we've been through, and it offers deep insight and differentiation opportunities for your clearing campaigns. Think about the My Account or My Application portals that you guys will hopefully have, and how you can authenticate and re-authenticate users and kind of tie user journeys and everything together. Lastly, engage audiences in the platform. Think video advertising, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, every kind of video platform. It's going to be a video first world, and it's something that we're kind of heavily investing in at Arke, and it's definitely what we see the future as. Instant experiences, so you can create really engaging content within platforms, and make the most of the retargeting capabilities that Ben taught you through that do exist within the app, so you don't need to use third-party cookies. And most importantly, from a selfish perspective, if you do want some guidance on how to thrive in the post-cookie world, come to us, because we can help you with it. Which does lead us nicely onto this slide. So it's our special offer. For those who've attended previous masterclasses, it's something we like to do. It's kind of like a little thank you for attending. So we're offering some free tracking in a cookieless world consultations. And essentially what it is, it will kind of give you a bit of an audit of your Google Analytics accounts and Facebook ads accounts, just offering a couple of bits of best practice. Are you kind of using everything you should be using? What do we need to do to get you up to speed? And off the back of that, there'll be some advice and guidance around Google Analytics 4 and how to set it up, and the same with the Facebook Conversions API. So it's really going to help you, I guess, how you can optimize your campaigns, track your campaigns and audiences, and measure the effectiveness of them moving forward. And it is strictly first come, first served up to agency capacity. So we'll be sending an email shortly after this session finishes. So if you'd like to get involved in that, all you need to do is click the link, just how you registered, and pop in your details, and we'll be in touch. And last but not least, pretty much 30 minutes on the nose, which is good. A huge thank you for attending our Clearing in the Cookieless World Masterclass. As I said there, if you'd like to get the consultation, do get in touch. And we hope you found it useful and insightful. Don't forget about the offer, as I just said. If you want to find out more, just drop us an email at hello@arkeagency.com or call us on 01273 041 111. Before we jump into the questions that have been coming in, we just wanted to ask you if you'd be able to kind of fill out the survey. So when the session ends, it will pop up. And there's just a few questions helping us to really make even better masterclasses, and you guys can help shape what our next sessions cover as well. This session actually came off the back of one that we've done previously, so really useful. Without further ado, any questions? This is where Joe and Ben really earn their bread today. So let's see what we've got. So first of all, oh, here we go. How do you set up the Facebook Conversions API? And I guess how long have you got? Joe, Ben, which one of you wants to tackle that one?
First two, and then.
Oh yeah, John did. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, how to set up a conversion API. So there's actually a number of ways you can do it. You generate an API authentication token in your Google Ads. Then you can use like a number of integrations that you can place onto your website, like on your server. One of the easiest ones that we use actually is Zapier. It's very robust. We have built a custom one before, but in terms of the time you spend doing that, Zapier is by far the easiest way to do it. But yeah, it's surprisingly straightforward. Yeah. And then the second question, can you give examples of first-party data that is best to collect? Starts with email addresses. Obviously, it's absolutely crucial in terms of your remarketing and your wider targeting as well. Basically, look like similar audiences off those email lists. It's crucial. An indication of course intent is also good as well. So you can put them in specific buckets for certain subjects and schools. A name always helps, especially if you're then trying to link up individuals from kind of pre-application phase to post-application phase. If you have like a matching email address, or at least like a similar email address, but the name is the same, then you can with some certainty say, yeah, that person was that person earlier on. the cycle. But as much as you can collect really is best. But in terms of those lead forms, it's best to keep it as light as possible because you don't want to waste people's time and you want to get them just to fill it out as soon as
Yeah, because I know you talked about recently about keeping it kind of above the fold, those fields, so you can get as much data as soon as possible without having to scroll 2/3, 3/4 of the way down the web page, right? Cool. And then kind of off the back of that, 2 questions really. Who would you target the clearing web forms to on Facebook/Instagram? Ben, Joe, whoever wants to jump in. Ben, hello. Can you hear us? Ben's. I'll tell you what, Ben. Do you want? You can come and sit next to me and do the question. Here you go. This is the beauty of us all being in the same office because Ben's computer is frozen. So, who would you target the clearing web forms to on Facebook/Instagram?
Cool.
So targeting the clearing web forms, it can either be to your kind of core audience or prospective students, but we would actually recommend having a separate one for your influencers audience too. So we've actually found that targeting parents with lead forms results in a much kind of stronger conversion rate. Of course, these kind of audiences are highly invested in kind of getting their kids into education. So I would have a separate form for your kind of core prospect student audience and one for parents, if that helps.
Cool. And then I guess off the back of that, retarget to those who visited certain web pages and those who visited your Facebook page in the last 30 days, would you suggest, or?
Yep, absolutely. So of course, retargeting people who have visited certain pages on your website will require third-party data. So that's something that we do recommend alongside things like retargeting people from your Facebook page. It's kind of, hitting your audience from both sides to ensure that, you're reaching as many high-intent people as possible.
Cool.
Just on that point as well, if I can jump in, like in terms of that 30-day window, I think for clearing, I think 30 days is probably like pretty optimum as long as you've got volume there. But in a general sense, over the course of the whole recruitment cycle, which as we know can be 1.5 years for some people, perhaps extending that to 90 or 180 days.
Cool. And then we've got one last question. If no more coming in between, what's the one thing we should do in the next 4 weeks before clearing to really help us hit our targets? So whether we've got a couple of kind of 3 gems that you guys can give away.
I would say, first and foremost, make sure that you have the infrastructure in place to collect inquiries and leads and have it super prevalent amongst that clearing content that you have on your site. First and foremost, it's also about creating a call list as well the day of clearing, like high-level results day. If you've got a list of 150 phone numbers that you can bring up immediately, or more, hopefully, maybe a couple of thousand.
Yep, if I can pitch in. Again, from that data that you've collected, of course, use these to build custom audiences within the platforms and get these set up as early as possible so they can populate before, key times such as A-level results day. And finally, I think my last kind of big recommendation is to make sure you get that Facebook API installed. Just to make sure, again, that you're collecting all of the data that you need before you actually need to use it.
Cool. Here we go. One last question. I think it's just come in. So will the changes to Facebook affect promoted posts based on the interests users, e.g. Facebook accounts they're following?
So the short answer is no, because when you're using interest audiences, you're using Facebook's proprietary data. But I suppose The potential issue with that is that, of course, so many other advertisers are going to be using those data sets as well. So that will kind of increase competition and likely drive up things like CPMs. What we would recommend is utilizing your own data to target and make lookalikes off of those core kind of audience segments.
Cool. Thank you very much. I don't think we've got any more questions. If you do have any questions, please shout now or forever hold your peace. But you can also email us, hello@arkeagency.com, or call us, and one of the guys can pick up the phone and help with anything, any queries. But yeah, that's all for today. Keep your eyes peeled for the email, which will land in your inbox shortly. And we'll also send out a recording of the presentation. I know we've been through a lot. It's got quite technical at times, so you guys can kind of take that in at your leisure and share with your teams. That's all, I think. Thank you ever so much for attending, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I hope the sun's shining where you are. We're in Brighton, so we're putting ahead to the beach at lunchtime, maybe, have an ice cream, get attacked by a few seagulls, and then come back to the office. Right, that's all for today. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you guys. Bye.